God disciples us through so many different means. He really does. He uses struggle. He uses other people. Certainly mentors and friends are part of this. But more specifically, I often remind people when it comes to God's tools to disciple us, the role of the basics, meaning the Word of God and prayer and time in a community of believers. These are so important. Certainly, it isn't just that we stay home and read our Bibles and leave the world alone. No, but hearing God as He speaks to us through His Word, time in the Scriptures. Long before Gutenberg developed the printing press, God discipled people through His truth. Sometimes that was an ancient Bible chained to a desk because everyone didn't have their own copy of it. But God has always used His Word, this powerful, authoritative, inerrant Word of God, to change our hearts and to turn us to Him. Today, we're very privileged to have the Word of God. Most of us, a few dozen copies of it in all the different major translations, to have it on our iPads and our cell phones and our computers and any other kind of electronic tools we have. We have copies of the Bible in any language or version coming out our ears. We have fewer excuses than ever to spend time in the Word of God. But God disciples people through His Word. But those other means, I think, are very significant as well. Sometimes I hear people say, I love Jesus, but not the church. But let me say this. Often those things are felt because a person's been hurt by a church. And I often say to people very directly, you've been hurt by a church? Well, let me tell you, I've got that t-shirt too. I've been a pastor for over 40 years. Hurt by a church? Hurt by church people? I know about this. And maybe you stepped away. Others of us don't really have that option quite as easily. But it is also in the community of believers that my heart is encouraged and cared for. There's a lot that has to happen from the Word of God, filtered by the Spirit of God, impacting our hearts by the Spirit of God, and lived out in the community of believers. Every Christian needs to be a part of a Bible preaching, gospel preaching community of believers. And I just think that's essential for our growth. It's an essential discipleship tool of the Spirit of God. Place yourself under the sound preaching of the Word of God. If you've been hurt, I am genuinely sorry that that's the case, devastated with you. It's certain types of hurt that come through the hands of a local church. And again, I know more about this than a listener might think. But to give up on the church, to walk away, I think is a huge mistake. God uses all of those, other people, prayer, Word of God, community of believers, and of course, other spiritual disciplines, silence, solitude, fasting, all of these things to be part of our growth. But we need to be looking at the Scriptures to say, what are the tools with which God disciples and changes my own heart?